the rulers of the stars. Long before humans built their first true starship, the galaxy already had a master. They were known as the First Dominion. For thousands of years, their fleets moved across the stars without fear. Their ships were larger than cities. Their weapons could crack planets in half. Their banners flew over more systems than anyone could count. Every young civilization learned the same lesson very quickly: obey or disappear. The Dominion did not believe in equals. They believed in order. And in their minds, they were the natural rulers of the universe. They had survived ancient wars. They had defeated powerful enemies. They had outlived rivals who once called themselves gods. Now no one challenged them. Trade routes passed through Dominion gates. Communication networks ran through Dominion relays. Even peace between alien races required Dominion approval. They called themselves protectors of stability. But protection always came at a price. If a planet refused their rule, Dominion fleets arrived within days. There were no long wars. No heroic last stands. Just a flash of light in the sky. And then silence. Other species whispered stories about them. Stories of entire star systems wiped from maps. Stories of moons turned to dust. Stories of proud empires erased so completely that only empty space remained. Fear was their greatest weapon. And fear kept the galaxy quiet. On their capital world, the Dominion High Council met inside a massive structure made of dark crystal and metal. It stood above the clouds, shining like a black star. From there, they watched the galaxy through endless streams of data. Reports flowed in every second. Trade secured. Borders stable. Minor rebellion crushed. Everything was under control. Then one day, a new report appeared. It came from a long-range exploration fleet near the outer spiral arm of the galaxy. The fleet had discovered a small yellow star system. 8 planets. One with life. Primitive life. The system was catalogued and scanned. The 3rd planet showed signs of industry. Radio waves. Artificial satellites. Early space travel. A young species had just begun reaching beyond its world. The Dominion observers studied the data with mild interest. The species called themselves humans. They were divided into nations. They argued constantly. They fought small wars among themselves. Their technology was unstable and inefficient. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were simple. The council was not impressed. One advisor suggested immediate control. Another suggested waiting until the species matured. A third suggested using them as labor. In the end, they made a simple decision: mark the system for future integration. There was no urgency. Humans were not a threat. They were barely noticeable compared to the ancient powers the Dominion had defeated long ago. The exploration fleet sent a small probe into the system. It watched from the shadows of the outer planets. It studied human communications. It mapped their military strength. The results were almost amusing. Humans were ambitious but fragile, creative but chaotic. Their world was divided by borders and politics. Their armies still fought over land and resources. Their scientists had only just begun dreaming about faster-than-light travel. One Dominion commander made a quiet joke: "They will destroy themselves before we ever arrive." The others agreed. On Earth, humans had no idea they were being watched. They continued their daily lives. Cities grew larger. Rockets launched into space. Nations competed for power. Scientists worked late into the night, chasing new ideas. Deep underground, secret projects were already in motion. Hidden laboratories studied gravity in strange ways. Private shipyards built experimental craft. Quiet alliances formed between rivals who understood something important. The universe was not empty. Some humans had seen signals. Weak signals. Patterns that did not match natural space noise. They had not told the public yet, but they were preparing. The Dominion probe recorded everything. After several months, it sent a final message back to the capital. Species classified as low-level developing civilization. No immediate threat detected. Recommend future assimilation. The council approved the file without discussion. In their archives, Earth was given a simple code number. Nothing more. But far from their capital, something unexpected happened. The probe lost connection. At first, Dominion operators assumed it was a technical failure. Space was unpredictable. Devices failed all the time. They sent a command signal. No response. They tried again. Nothing. The probe had not been destroyed in an explosion. There was no debris. No energy spike. It had simply vanished. The Dominion logged it as equipment loss. Unimportant. But if anyone had been watching closely, they would have noticed something strange in the final data packet. Just before the signal ended, the probe had detected an artificial energy field. One that did not match any known Dominion technology. It lasted less than a second. Then it was gone. On Earth, deep beneath layers of rock and steel, a group of human scientists stood in silence inside a hidden facility. On a large screen, alien symbols slowly faded. One scientist spoke softly. "So, we were right." Another nodded. "They're out there." Above them, the world continued as normal. But somewhere in the dark between stars, the galaxy's greatest empire had just made its first mistake. And they did not even know it. The First Dominion did not ignore problems. When the exploration probe near Earth vanished, the loss was small, but the silence was strange. Dominion machines did not simply disappear. Their technology was stable. Their systems were precise. The High Council ordered a closer look. This time, they did not send a single probe. They sent a fleet. 10 warships entered the outer edge of the human solar system. Their hulls were dark and smooth, shaped like blades. Each one carried weapons strong enough to destroy continents. They did not hide their arrival. They wanted to be seen. As the fleet moved closer to Earth, human satellites began to fail. Communication systems experienced strange interference. Military radars detected objects moving faster than anything known. At first, world governments thought it was a glitch. Then telescopes confirmed it. Unknown ships were entering orbit. News spread across the planet within hours. Emergency meetings were called. Military forces went on full alert. Fighter jets filled the skies. Missile systems were armed. Fear moved through cities like a cold wind. On the Dominion flagship, commanders watched Earth's reactions with calm interest. They studied the chaos, the arguments between leaders, the different languages, the confusion. To them, it proved one thing. Humans were divided. Divided species were easy to control. The Dominion sent a signal directly to Earth's major communication networks. It overpowered human systems and appeared on screens everywhere. Homes, offices, government buildings, military bases. The message was translated automatically into human languages. "We are the First Dominion. This system now falls under our authority. You will lower all defenses. You will prepare for integration. Resistance will result in planetary correction." The message ended. For a moment, the entire world was silent. Then the arguments began. Some leaders wanted to surrender immediately. They saw the alien ships and understood the power difference. Survival at any cost seemed reasonable. Others demanded resistance. They argued that surrender would only lead to slavery or extinction. Social media exploded with fear and anger. Protests began in major cities. Some people prayed. Others rioted. Stock markets crashed within minutes. The Dominion commanders expected this. They gave humanity 24 hours to respond. But something unexpected happened during those 24 hours. The arguments slowly stopped. Not because everyone agreed, but because the threat was too large to ignore. Behind closed doors, rival nations began sharing classified information. Secret research programs were revealed to former enemies. Military leaders spoke openly about hidden projects. For years, some governments had suspected alien observation. Strange signals. Unexplained space anomalies. Disappearing satellites. They had prepared quietly. Now, there was no reason to hide. A global emergency council formed. Not under one flag, not under one ruler, but under one purpose. Survival. Deep underground facilities activated systems that had never been tested in open space. Experimental ships powered up inside, hidden hangars carved into mountains. Scientists unlocked files marked with the highest security levels. Humanity had more technology than the Dominion expected. Still, compared to 10 alien warships, it was not enough. When the 24 hours ended, Earth sent a single response. No long speech. No surrender message. Just silence. The Dominion Council saw the silence as defiance. They ordered a warning strike. One Dominion ship moved into position above an uninhabited ocean. Its main weapon charged, pulling energy from its core. The sky over the sea turned bright blue. Then the beam fired. The ocean's surface exploded into steam. A massive shockwave rolled across the water. Satellites recorded the event. Coastal cities felt the tremor. The message was clear. This was only a fraction of their power. The Dominion sent another transmission. This is your final warning. Submit. Again, Earth did not answer. Instead, something strange began to happen. Dominion sensors started losing signals from their own ships. One warship reported navigation errors. Another experienced power fluctuations. A third lost contact with the fleet network for several seconds. The commanders grew irritated. Human technology should not be able to interfere with theirs. Then, without warning, every Dominion screen went black for exactly 1 second. 1 second of total darkness. When systems came back online, something impossible had occurred. Earth was gone. Not destroyed. Not burning.
Gone.
Long-range scans showed empty space where the planet had been. No debris. No explosion marks. No gravitational remains. The moon was still there. The other planets were still there. But Earth had vanished completely. The Dominion fleet spread out, scanning every direction. They searched for cloaking fields, warp distortions, hidden gates. Nothing. The third planet of the system had simply disappeared. On the flagship bridge, silence filled the air. For the first time in centuries, Dominion officers did not know what had happened. Back in deep space, far beyond the outer edge of the solar system, thousands of human ships powered down their engines. They floated in darkness, hidden inside a distorted pocket of space created by experimental gravity technology. Earth had not been destroyed. It had been moved, relocated into a hidden fold between dimensions, invisible to normal scanning. Human commanders watched the Dominion fleet from a distance through advanced sensors. One officer spoke quietly. "They think we ran." Another shook his head.
No.
"We prepared." Behind them, the largest human fleet ever assembled waited in silence. The Dominion had come expecting surrender. Instead, they had triggered something far more dangerous. Humanity was no longer divided. And now, the war had truly begun. The Dominion fleet searched for Earth for 3 full days. They scanned every planet, every moon, every asteroid field. Nothing. The third planet of the system was gone, as if it had never existed. Dominion science officers ran calculations again and again. A planet could not simply vanish. Even if it exploded, debris would remain. Gravitational waves would ripple across the system. There were no waves. No fragments. No radiation. It was as if space itself had been rewritten. The fleet commander sent an urgent report to the High Council. This species has used unknown spatial technology. Threat level increased. Back on the Dominion capital world, the council members felt something they had not felt in centuries. Uncertainty. Still, they did not feel fear. Not yet. They believed it was a trick. A desperate move by a weak species trying to hide. Hiding only delayed defeat. They ordered more fleets to prepare for deployment. "We will locate them," one council leader declared. No one escapes the Dominion. But far from Dominion space, in a region of deep darkness between stars, Earth was very much alive. The sky above the planet looked different now. The stars were unfamiliar. The sun appeared slightly dimmer through the distorted field surrounding the system. Human scientists called it the Veil. It was a massive gravity shell built using experimental technology developed in secret over many years. It bent light and space around Earth, hiding it inside a folded layer of reality. The project had once seemed impossible. Now it was the only reason humanity still existed. Inside hidden command centers, human leaders worked without rest. Military forces moved quietly across the planet. Industries shifted from civilian production to defense manufacturing. Nations still existed, but old rivalries were gone. There was no time for them. Above Earth, thousands of human ships gathered in orbit. Some were large carriers built in secret shipyards. Others were small, fast attack vessels designed for speed and stealth. Many had never been tested in real battle, but their crews were ready. In one underground command room, a group of officers studied Dominion fleet movements through long-range sensors. "They are expanding their search pattern," one analyst said. "They think we are hiding somewhere in the system," another replied. A senior commander stood silently, watching the holographic map. "They still believe we are weak," he said calmly. "That is their mistake." Years before the Dominion arrived, human scientists had detected strange signals from deep space, patterns that repeated too perfectly to be natural. Some governments ignored the discovery. Others did not. A small alliance formed in secret. They studied alien mathematics hidden inside the signals. They learned slowly, carefully. The signals were not messages. They were navigation markers. Markers used by a powerful civilization to map controlled space. The Dominion had been claiming territory for centuries, and they had not even realized someone was listening. Humans had built their new technology based on stolen knowledge. Not copied directly, but improved in unpredictable ways. Human engineers were creative. They took risks. The Veil was one example. The next phase was more dangerous. The commander looked at the officers around him. "It is time," he said. Far beyond the Veil, human fleets powered up their engines. But they did not move toward Earth. They moved away from it. Small task forces jumped into hyperspace using unstable but powerful drives. Unlike Dominion ships, human vessels did not follow fixed travel lanes. They tore short paths through space, unpredictable and hard to track. Their targets were not major worlds. Not yet. They aimed for remote Dominion outposts, mining colonies, communication relays, fuel depots. The first strike came without warning. A Dominion mining station near a red dwarf star suddenly lost power. Its sensors detected gravity distortion seconds before human ships appeared. Precision missiles hit key systems. Energy beams sliced through defense grids. The attack lasted less than 5 minutes. When it ended, the station was dark. No survivors. No distress signal. The human ships vanished just as quickly as they had arrived. Hours later, another outpost went silent. Then another. Dominion commanders at first believed it was coincidence. System failure. Pirate action. But reports kept coming. Entire facilities disappeared from the network. Ships sent to investigate never returned. For the first time in generations, Dominion citizens heard rumors of weakness. On the capital world, the High Council demanded answers. "How can a primitive species strike us?" one leader asked in anger. "They should not possess this capability." A science advisor spoke carefully. "They are not primitive anymore." The room fell silent. Back in the hidden veil, human commanders watched the growing confusion inside Dominion space. They were not celebrating. Every attack cost resources. Every jump risked detection. Some human ships did not return. But the strategy was clear. They would not fight the Dominion in open war. Not yet. They would bleed them. Cut supply lines. Destroy confidence. Force them to react. Force them to doubt. On Earth, people looked up at the sky, knowing alien fleets searched for them somewhere in the darkness. Fear still existed, but it was mixed with something new. Determination. Humanity had made a choice. They would not kneel. They would not beg. And they would not wait to be erased. If the Dominion wanted a war, they would have won. But it would not be a simple conquest. It would be a hunt. And for the first time in history, the hunters were not the only ones searching. The First Dominion had faced wars before. They had crushed rising empires. They had destroyed rebel coalitions. They had silenced entire sectors with a single fleet. But this war was different. There was no front line, no official declaration, only silence and sudden loss. After several mining stations vanished, Dominion commanders increased patrols across their outer territories. Warships guarded fuel depots. Defense platforms were activated around shipyards. Communication relays were monitored every second. They expected a visible enemy. Instead, they faced ghosts. In one remote system near the edge of Dominion space, a large supply hub orbited a gas giant. Hundreds of transport ships docked there every week. It was protected by 3 heavy cruisers and multiple defense satellites. The officers on duty believed they were safe. Their sensors showed nothing unusual. No warp signatures. No incoming fleets. Then space itself trembled. For less than a second, a strange ripple passed through the system. It was small, easy to ignore, but it was enough. Human strike ships burst out of distorted space behind the gas giant shadow. They did not arrive through normal hyperspace lanes. They cut their own path through space, appearing where no one expected them. Before the Dominion ships could turn their weapons, human missiles were already in motion. They were not large. They were not bright. They were precise. Each one struck key systems, engines, shield generators, communication arrays. Human pilots had studied Dominion ship design carefully. They did not waste firepower on armor. They attacked weaknesses. One cruiser tried to send a distress signal. A human electronic warfare vessel blocked it instantly. Another cruiser fired blindly into space, but human ships were already moving, using short gravity jumps to reposition faster than Dominion tracking systems could adjust. The battle lasted 9 minutes. When it ended, the supply hub was a burning cloud of debris. The gas giant reflected the light of explosions across its thick storms. Human ships gathered for only seconds to confirm destruction. Then they vanished. No chase. No message. Only ruin. When the Dominion finally received fragments of delayed data from automated beacons, anger spread through the High Council. "This is impossible," one council leader said. "They are a developing species." Another replied quietly, "They were." More reports followed. A shipyard in another sector experienced reactor failure after a hidden virus entered its control systems. Surveillance footage showed nothing. No boarding ships. No explosions. Just sudden overload. Human infiltration units had inserted microscopic devices during earlier skirmishes. Devices designed not to explode but to wait. And when activated, they caused silent destruction from within. The Dominion began to understand something terrifying. Humans were not fighting like a young civilization. They were fighting like survivors. Back inside the Veil, human commanders studied the results of the latest strike. Losses: 2 small attack ships. Damage: moderate. Enemy supply capacity reduced by 12% in outer sectors. It was not a decisive blow, but it was enough. The goal was not to win quickly. The goal was to weaken slowly. A young officer asked the fleet commander, "Why don't we attack their main worlds?" The commander looked at the star map. "If we strike their heart now, they unite," he said. "If we cut their limbs first, they panic." And panic was spreading. Dominion citizens across several systems began hearing rumors. Trade ships were delayed. Fuel shipments failed to arrive. Military patrols increased. Confidence in the Dominion's invincibility began to crack. For centuries, the Dominion had ruled through fear. Now fear was turning inward. In one major Dominion city, a public broadcast attempted to calm the population. "These are minor disturbances caused by external aggressors," the official speaker announced. "The situation is under control." But even as the message played, another outpost went dark. This time it was a communication relay near a key hyperspace lane. Human ships emerged silently, targeting data storage cores instead of reactors. They erased navigation maps and erased records of fleet movements. Then they destroyed the station. Without that relay, several Dominion fleets temporarily lost coordination. Orders were delayed. Patrol routes overlapped. Defense coverage weakened. Human strategy was clear now. They were not only attacking ships, they were attacking structure, attacking trust, attacking certainty. Back at the Dominion capital, emergency meetings continued without rest. Deploy the Grand Armada, one council member demanded. Find Earth. Destroy it completely. But another advisor spoke carefully. If they can hide a planet, what else can they hide? Silence filled the chamber. No one had an answer. Far away, inside the hidden veil, Earth continued building. Factories worked day and night. New ships rolled out of secret orbital docks. Scientists improved gravity drives and stealth systems with every battle. Humanity had changed. They were no longer reacting. They were planning. As another Dominion outpost vanished into darkness, one human commander sent a private message to fleet leaders. Phase 1 complete. The Alpha is bleeding. The First Dominion had once ruled the galaxy without question. Now, for the first time in their history, they were being hunted. And they still did not fully understand the enemy they had awakened. The First Dominion had always believed in one rule: power decides truth. For thousands of years, they were the strongest. That meant they were right. It meant they were superior. It meant no one could challenge them. But now, something was wrong. Outer systems were unstable. Supply routes were damaged. Communication networks failed without warning. Entire stations vanished before rescue fleets could arrive. And still, they had not seen the full human fleet. The High Council demanded answers. Dominion warships were ordered to capture a human vessel instead of destroying it. They needed to study the enemy directly. The opportunity came in a border system near a dying star. A small human strike group attacked a fuel depot. This time, Dominion reinforcements were already waiting nearby. As human ships began their assault, Dominion cruisers jumped into the system from multiple directions. It was a trap. Energy beams crossed the dark space. Explosions flashed between stars. 2 human ships were destroyed instantly. A third was heavily damaged. Instead of retreating immediately, the damaged human vessel changed course. It flew directly toward a Dominion cruiser. The Dominion captain prepared to fire the final shot. But before the beam could strike, the human ship released a pulse. Not an explosion. Not a missile. A wave. Space itself seemed to twist for a brief moment. Sensors failed. Lights flickered. Gravity systems glitched. Then the human ship went dark and drifted. Dominion boarding teams moved quickly. They secured the vessel and brought it inside their cruiser. Inside the captured ship, they found something unexpected. The design was simple, functional. No decoration. No signs of pride or status. Everything was built for efficiency. The human crew had not survived. Their systems had self-destructed critical data, but fragments remained in damaged storage cores. Dominion scientists began analyzing the technology. What they discovered changed everything. Human gravity drives did not follow stable hyperspace lanes like Dominion ships. Instead, they forced open temporary paths through raw space using unstable gravity compression. It was dangerous, unpredictable, but it allowed humans to appear anywhere without warning. Even more disturbing was their weapon design. Human missiles were guided by adaptive learning systems. They studied enemy defenses in real time and adjusted their path within seconds. Human electronic warfare units did not simply block signals. They rewrote them. One scientist reported to the council with visible tension. Their systems are not more advanced than ours in raw output, he explained. But they are flexible. They change during battle. Another added quietly, they design for loss. The council demanded clarification. The scientists continued, human ships expect damage. They expect destruction. Their systems reroute power automatically. Their weapons are built in modules. If one part fails, another takes over. Dominion ships were built for dominance. Human ships were built for survival. The difference was clear. The Dominion believed they would win every fight. Humans prepared for the worst outcome in every fight. Back inside the Veil, news of the captured ship reached human command. There was no panic. The loss had been calculated. Every ship carried limited real data. Critical systems were isolated. Self-erasing code activated when boarding was detected. Human leaders had expected capture eventually. One senior officer addressed a group of new recruits. The Dominion believes strength is about size, he said. They believe the largest fleet wins. He pointed to a hologram showing Dominion formations. They move in patterns, predictable patterns, because they're used to being feared. Then he switched the display to human fleet movements. We move like water. We adapt. We retreat when needed. We strike when they are blind. The recruits listened in silence. The officer continued. They think we fight for pride. They are wrong. He paused. We fight because we must. In Dominion space, panic was spreading beyond the military. Merchants began hoarding resources. Minor species under Dominion rule questioned their protectors. Some even stopped sending tribute. Confidence was fading. The High Council finally accepted a painful truth. Humans were not a minor problem. They were a growing threat. One council member spoke what others feared to admit. If they continue to weaken us from within, other civilizations will rise against us. The Dominion's greatest weapon had always been reputation. If that reputation collapsed, their empire would fracture. The council made a decision. They would gather their largest fleet ever assembled. They would stop reacting. They would crush humanity in one overwhelming strike. Back in the hidden human command center, long-range sensors detected unusual Dominion activity. Mass fleet movements. Heavy warship concentrations. Supply convoys converging toward a central rally point. The human commanders studied the data quietly. They are preparing their main force, an analyst said. Yes, the commander replied. He did not look afraid. Good. The officer beside him looked surprised. Good. The commander nodded. They finally understand that we are not prey. He turned toward the star map, where a massive Dominion fleet icon slowly formed. They are bringing everything. He folded his hands behind his back. Now we will show them what humanity truly built in the dark. The Dominion believed they were preparing to end the war. They did not realize they were walking into the most dangerous battle in their history. And this time, humans were not planning to disappear. The First Dominion had never gathered a fleet this large. Thousands of warships assembled in one system near the center of their territory. Battleships, cruisers, carriers, destroyers, all lined in perfect formation. Their hulls reflected the light of nearby stars like a wall of metal stretching across space. It was a display of power meant to crush hope. The High Council broadcast a message across their empire. The rebellion ends now. The fleet's mission was simple. Find humanity. Destroy their hidden world. End the war in one final strike. Dominion scientists had spent weeks tracking gravity distortions left behind by human drives. Small traces. Weak signals. But enough to form a possible location. One system showed unusual space readings. Empty. Quiet. But not natural. The Grand Fleet jumped together. Space opened in massive blue fractures as ship after ship entered hyperspace. The movement shook nearby systems. Energy levels spiked across Dominion space. This was not a patrol. This was execution. Far away, inside the hidden veil, human long-range sensors detected the disturbance immediately. They're moving, an analyst said calmly. The main display filled with red markers, thousands of them. Human commanders had expected this moment. They had prepared for it. The veil around Earth remained active, but the fleet stationed outside was already in position. Unlike the Dominion, human ships were not gathered in one large formation. They were scattered across nearby systems, hidden behind moons, inside asteroid belts, even drifting cold and silent in deep space. They were waiting. The Dominion fleet arrived in the targeted system and spread out in a wide search pattern. Heavy sensor sweeps scanned every direction. Then they saw it. A faint gravity signature. Human ships, small in number, drifting in open space. The Dominion commanders felt satisfaction. So this is all they have left, one officer said. The order to attack was given. Dominion ships surged forward in a perfect wave. Energy cannons charged. Missile bays opened. But the human ships did not retreat. They did not scatter. They moved slightly. Just enough. The first Dominion volley fired. Massive beams tore through space, destroying several human ships instantly. Explosions lit the darkness. The Dominion fleet pushed forward confidently. Then the trap closed. From behind distant asteroids, hundreds of human ships emerged. From the dark side of a nearby moon, more appeared. Hidden vessels powered up from silent mode across the system. They had never been detected. Human gravity drives activated at once. Ships jumped short distances within the battlefield, reappearing behind Dominion lines. Chaos began immediately. Dominion formations were built for frontal assault. Human tactics attacked from every direction. Missiles swarmed like storms, targeting engines and communication arrays. Electronic warfare units flooded Dominion networks with false signals and corrupted targeting data. Entire Dominion squadrons began firing at empty space. Some fired at each other. The human fleet did not stay still long enough to be crushed. They moved constantly, jumping in and out of microspace folds, striking and vanishing within seconds. The Dominion flagship attempted to reorganize the fleet. Hold formation. Focus fire. But it was too late. Human heavy carriers revealed their final weapon: gravity distortion cannons. These weapons did not explode on impact. They bent space violently around their targets. When fired, space folded inward like a collapsing wave. Dominion ships caught in the blast did not burn or shatter. They stretched, compressed, and then disappeared. Not destroyed in fire. Erased from physical existence. Entire sections of the Dominion fleet vanished without debris. Panic spread across command channels. Ships are missing. Coordinates unstable. Navigation failing. The battlefield turned into confusion. Dominion ships collided as gravity fields destabilized. Some tried to retreat, but human interference blocked hyperspace exits. Human losses were heavy. Dozens of ships were destroyed under concentrated Dominion fire. But every loss was calculated. They were trading smaller vessels for massive enemy warships. After 3 hours of constant battle, the Dominion fleet was no longer organized. It was scattered wreckage and drifting metal. The flagship attempted one final hyperspace jump. Before it could escape, multiple human distortion beams struck it from different angles. The massive vessel twisted unnaturally. Then it vanished. Silence followed. No final explosion. No debris field. Just empty space where thousands of Dominion ships once stood. Human fleets regrouped slowly. Damaged ships limped away. Rescue teams recovered survivors. The system, once filled with the greatest armada in the galaxy, was now quiet. Inside Dominion space, communication networks waited for victory reports. None came. Instead, automated beacons began transmitting fragmented data. Fleet lost. Command unresponsive. Mass disappearance. On the Dominion capital world, the High Council stared at silent screens. Their strongest force. Gone. Not defeated in a long war. Not worn down over years. Broken in a single battle. For the first time in their recorded history, the First Dominion understood something terrible. They were no longer the Alpha. Far from their capital, human commanders reviewed the results. Victory had come at great cost. But it was decisive. One officer spoke quietly. They will never recover from this. The senior commander looked at the empty star map where the Grand Fleet once existed. This was only the beginning, he said. The galaxy must learn what happens when someone tries to erase humanity. And somewhere in Dominion archives, thousands of ship records simply stopped existing. As if they had never been built. As if they had never lived. The Alpha had been broken. And the war was far from over. The destruction of the Grand Fleet shook the First Dominion to its core. For centuries, they had believed they could not be defeated in open battle. Now, thousands of their best warships were gone. Entire crews had vanished without wreckage. Their most powerful commanders had disappeared into nothing. But the Dominion still had territory. They still had cities. They still had millions of soldiers. So they chose a new strategy. Retreat. Fortify. Regroup. Borders were pulled inward. Outer systems were abandoned. Patrol routes were shortened to defend only the most important worlds. Massive defense platforms were built around their capital planet. They told their people this was a strategic adjustment. But everyone knew the truth. They were afraid. Humanity saw the change immediately. Long-range scans showed shrinking Dominion control zones. Trade routes collapsed as protection faded. Smaller civilizations that once feared the Dominion began acting differently. Some refused tribute payments. Others stopped sending resources. The image of invincibility was cracking. And humans decided to strike where it would hurt the most. Not ships. Not planets. Memory. The first target was a Dominion archive world, a heavily protected planet that stored historical records of the Empire. Every conquest, every victory, every erased species was recorded there. Human fleets did not arrive in large numbers. Instead, small infiltration groups slipped through weakly defended sectors using unstable gravity paths. They avoided major fleets. They stayed invisible. On the archive world, defense systems were strong. Shields covered entire cities. Anti-orbital cannons tracked the sky constantly. But human strategy did not rely on brute force. Hidden inside cargo shipments captured months earlier were microscopic devices. They had been placed carefully inside Dominion supply chains. They had waited. Now they activated. Inside the archive planet's data towers, systems began failing quietly. Files corrupted. Backups scrambled. Redundant storage melted under controlled overload. By the time Dominion technicians realized something was wrong, it was too late. Human strike ships appeared above the planet and targeted communication hubs only. They did not attack population centers. They did not destroy infrastructure. They destroyed records. Massive data cores exploded in controlled bursts. Historical databases were wiped clean in seconds. The planet survived. But the Dominion's past did not. Across the galaxy, connected systems began receiving error messages. Military records missing. Fleet construction logs incomplete. Battle reports unreadable. Entire wars no longer existed in the database. The Dominion's greatest weapon had always been reputation. Stories of their unstoppable victories had kept systems loyal. Now those stories were vanishing. Young Dominion citizens began asking questions. Did we really conquer all those systems? Did those enemies truly exist? Without records, certainty faded. Human operations continued. Navigation relays were targeted next. Star maps were subtly altered. Trade routes were misaligned. Hyperspace markers were erased. Dominion ships attempting long-distance travel found themselves lost in unstable space corridors. Some fleets emerged light years off course. Others never returned at all. The silent war had begun. Human fleets avoided large confrontations. Instead, they struck logistics centers, data networks, and communication lines. They erased proof of dominance. Meanwhile, they sent quiet messages to other civilizations. Simple messages. We do not seek your worlds. We seek balance. Some species did not believe them at first. But when Dominion fleets failed to respond to border disputes, when tribute collectors stopped arriving, when ancient threats suddenly felt weak, hope began spreading. On the Dominion capital world, the High Council was in crisis. Our archives are failing, one advisor reported. Reconstruction is impossible without original backups. Another added, outer systems are declaring independence. The council leader struck the table in anger. Restore order. But how could they restore fear if history itself was being erased? Dominion military forces launched several desperate counterattacks, trying to locate Earth's hidden position again. They scanned space relentlessly for gravity distortions. They found nothing. Human fleets operated from multiple hidden zones now, not just the Veil. Portable distortion generators allowed them to create temporary safe zones anywhere. The Dominion was fighting shadows. Worse still, whispers began inside their own ranks. If the Dominion could lose a fleet, if their records could vanish, if their enemies could appear anywhere, then perhaps they were never truly invincible. And fear, once their greatest tool, was now turning inward. Inside the Veil, Human Command reviewed the latest reports. Archive world neutralized. Navigation disruption at 40%. Dominion outer sectors unstable. A young officer asked, "Are we destroying them?" The senior commander shook his head slowly.
No.
He looked at the star map, where Dominion territory was shrinking each day. "We are removing the idea that they cannot fall. Because once that idea was gone, the Empire would collapse on its own." Across the galaxy, one truth was becoming clear. The Dominion had ruled through memory and fear. Humanity was deleting both. The war was no longer loud. It was quiet,
Precise.
surgical, and every day, the First Dominion became less certain that they had ever been the Alpha at all. The First Dominion was no longer expanding. It was shrinking. Outer systems had broken away. Trade routes were unstable. Military fleets stayed close to the capital, afraid to move too far into open space. For the first time in their long history, the Dominion was on the defensive. And at the center of their empire stood their greatest world. The capital, a massive planet covered in shining cities, endless towers, and heavy defense grids. Orbital rings circled it like metal crowns. Thousands of defense cannons pointed toward space. Shield generators glowed day and night. This world was not just a government center. It was a symbol. If it fell, the Dominion would fall with it. The High Council moved all remaining major fleets into orbit around the capital. Warships formed tight formations. Minefields were deployed across approach routes. Hyperspace lanes were locked and heavily monitored. They expected a direct assault. They were right. Far beyond detection range, human fleets gathered in silence. Not scattered this time. Not hiding. Thousands of ships aligned in formation for the first time since the war began. Carriers, strike craft, electronic warfare vessels, heavy distortion platforms. Human commanders understood the risk. This battle would not be quick. It would not be clean, but it would be final. Inside the Veil, Earth's leaders watched the live tactical map. A single command was given. Begin. Space above the Dominion capital cracked open. Human ships emerged in multiple waves from unstable gravity folds. Not from predictable hyperspace lanes, but from dozens of angles at once. Dominion sensors screamed warnings. Multiple contacts. Incoming fleet size unknown. Defense cannons fired immediately. The sky above the capital turned bright with energy beams. Human ships exploded under heavy fire. But they kept coming. Human carriers released waves of smaller strike craft. These fast ships darted between defense platforms, targeting shield generators and communication towers. Dominion warships moved to intercept, but human gravity drives allowed rapid short jumps within the battlefield. Ships appeared behind enemy lines, fired, then vanished seconds later. The battle filled the entire system. Explosions reflected across the capital planet's oceans. Debris rained into the upper atmosphere like burning stars. Dominion commanders tried to maintain order. Hold the inner ring. Protect the council district. But their formations were built for controlled warfare. This was chaos. Human distortion cannons began targeting orbital defense rings. Instead of blowing them apart, they twisted space around them. Entire sections of the ring stretched and disappeared, leaving empty gaps in the protective shield. The capital's main shield grid flickered. For the first time, the planet below was exposed. On the surface, citizens watched the sky in terror. They had been told the Dominion could never be defeated. Now they saw enemy ships clearly above them. Inside the council chamber, leaders argued. "We must negotiate. We will not surrender. We still have reserves." But reports continued flooding in. Outer defense ring destroyed. Fleet strength reduced by 50%. Shield stability critical. Human fleets did not target civilian areas. They avoided city centers. They aimed for military structures, command hubs, power grids that supported weapons. It was precise, deliberate. A message suddenly appeared across Dominion communication networks. It was simple. "We warned you. No threats. No demands. Just truth." The final phase began. Human heavy carriers aligned in high orbit. Their largest distortion arrays powered up, drawing energy from multiple reactors. Dominion ships attempted a final counterattack, launching everything they had left. It was not enough. The distortion beams fired together. Space above the capital folded inward like a collapsing wave. The High Council chamber shook violently. Lights flickered. Screens shattered. For a brief moment, time itself seemed unstable. Then, silence. Above the planet, Dominion warships were gone.
Not wrecked.
Not burning.
Gone.
On the surface, government towers still stood. Cities remained intact. Oceans continued to move. But something was different. Inside command centers, officers looked around in confusion. Council members had vanished from their seats. Military leaders were missing. Across the planet, every registered member of the Dominion ruling species was gone. No bodies. No remains. No energy trace. Only empty rooms. Human fleets slowly powered down their weapons. They did not fire on the planet again. They had not destroyed it. They had removed its rulers. Across the galaxy, Dominion networks updated automatically. Leadership status: unresponsive. Command authority: null. Military hierarchy: erased. Systems that once listed the ruling species as the Alpha Authority now displayed empty data fields. In the human flagship, silence filled the bridge. One officer whispered, "Is it over?" The fleet commander watched the capital world rotate below. "Yes," he said quietly. "The Alpha has fallen." Human ships began withdrawing from the system, leaving the planet intact. They did not claim it.
They did not occupy it.
They left it to rebuild without its former masters. Across the galaxy, other civilizations received the news slowly. The First Dominion no longer existed as a ruling power. The empire that once erased others had itself been erased from control. And for the first time in thousands of years, the stars felt quiet. When the human fleets left the Dominion capital system, they did not celebrate. There were no victory parades, no loud broadcasts, no claim of conquest. There was only silence. Across the galaxy, confusion spread faster than any fleet. Dominion networks continued running on automatic systems, but there were no leaders to guide them. No central authority. No ruling voice. Planets that once answered directly to the High Council waited for orders that never came. Days passed. Then weeks. Nothing. On the former capital world, the cities still stood tall. The power grids worked. The transport systems ran on schedule. But every building that once held Dominion rulers was empty. Military command centers were abandoned. Council chambers were silent. High-ranking officers had vanished along with their leaders. The ruling species had not died in fire. They had not fallen in battle. They had simply stopped existing. The other species living under Dominion control were left behind. Workers, citizens, servants, traders. They were confused. Some were afraid that humanity would return and finish the destruction. Others quietly felt something they had never felt before: relief. Across distant systems, minor civilizations began testing their freedom. Tribute payments stopped. Military patrols from the Dominion no longer arrived to enforce old rules. At first, many believed this was temporary. Surely the Alpha would rise again. But then something even stranger began happening. Galactic databases updated automatically as systems synchronized with surviving data cores. Where once the Dominion symbol had marked controlled space, there were now blank regions. Fleet registries showed missing entries. Battle histories contained gaps. Records of ancient conquests were corrupted beyond repair. The name of the First Dominion slowly faded from official star charts. Younger civilizations began asking questions. Who ruled before? Who built those old gates? Who fought those ancient wars? Answers were unclear. The silent war had done its work. Without leadership and without memory, the Dominion was not just defeated. It was forgotten. In the hidden veil, human leaders reviewed long-term projections. Dominion military capacity: 0 central command. Political structure: collapsed. Threat level: minimal. But the human commanders were cautious. Power vacuums create chaos, one advisor said. He was right. In several outer systems, former Dominion warlords tried to seize control. Small fleets fought over abandoned shipyards. Criminal groups attempted to claim trade routes. The galaxy was unstable. Humanity faced a choice. They could take control of the empty empire, or they could guide from a distance. After long debate, they chose a different path than the Dominion had once chosen. Instead of sending invasion fleets, humans sent messages.
Clear. Direct.
We do not seek your worlds. We do not demand tribute. We will not rule you. The message spread across thousands of systems. But it did not end there. A second message followed. If you threaten others, we will respond. No threats of conquest. No promises of dominance.
Just a boundary.
Some species did not trust it at first. They had lived under the Dominion's shadow for generations. They believed all powerful civilizations eventually demanded control. But as months passed, human fleets did not occupy former Dominion worlds. They did not plant flags. They did not install governors. Instead, they helped stabilize hyperspace routes. They repaired damaged communication networks. They offered trade agreements instead of demands. Slowly, trust began to grow. On the former Dominion capital world, surviving citizens gathered in the once grand council chamber. It was empty. The massive seats where rulers once sat were silent and covered in dust. One citizen spoke softly. They said they were eternal. Another looked at the empty space where leaders once stood. Nothing is eternal. Far away, in a secure human archive, a classified file was stored under the highest protection. It contained full records of the final operation, the removal, the distortion field that had targeted only the Dominion ruling species based on genetic markers and command authority signatures. It had not been random. It had been precise. Humanity had not destroyed a planet. They had erased a ruling class. The reason was simple. The Dominion had erased others for power. Humanity erased them for balance. In the years that followed, new alliances formed across the galaxy. Independent systems began working together without fear of sudden destruction. Trade improved. Science advanced. Conflict still happened, but none reached the scale of total erasure. And whenever tensions grew too high, a quiet human fleet would appear at the edge of a system. Not attacking, just watching. A reminder. The galaxy no longer had an alpha, but it had something else. A guardian. And everyone understood the unspoken truth. The First Dominion had once ruled through fear and memory. Humanity had ended both. Not with endless war. Not with total destruction. But with one final act that changed the balance of the stars forever. The empire that erased others had itself been erased. And history, now rewritten, moved forward without them. Years passed since the fall of the First Dominion. The galaxy was quiet in a way it had never been before. No empire ruled with fear. No fleets enforced obedience. No rulers claimed to be gods of the stars. Humanity, for its part, did not announce itself as the new master. They did not plant flags on planets. They did not demand tribute or loyalty. Instead, they worked quietly, helping civilizations rebuild, sharing knowledge, and repairing damaged infrastructure. In every corner of the galaxy, humans were present but not as conquerors. They became the silent guardians. In former Dominion space, many species had flourished. New alliances formed. Star systems traded with each other. Scientific research grew faster than it ever had under Dominion rule. Still, humans maintained a careful watch. They knew balance was fragile. One wrong move, and old patterns could return. Inside the hidden command centers, human officers reviewed maps of the galaxy. Red zones marked previously unstable regions. Blue zones were areas under observation. Green indicated peaceful systems. Everything is stable, an officer said. The commander shook his head.
Stable, yes.
But stability must be maintained. Peace is fragile, and memory is dangerous. Years of preparation had taught humanity one lesson. Power was not about conquest. Power was about survival and foresight. They had destroyed nothing that did not deserve it, but the Dominion had been an exception. Their removal had been precise, calculated, and final. The commander tapped a star chart. The galaxy should never forget what happens when someone seeks to erase others. Fear can only exist where memory survives. We control memory carefully. We do not conquer through terror, but we ensure survival through caution. Elsewhere, in the reconstructed former Dominion capital, scholars studied ancient ruins and records that survived human intervention. Buildings once filled with rulers' offices now served as archives and libraries for all species. No one claimed dominion. No one worshipped power. Instead, a lesson was everywhere. History was not written by those who claimed to rule. It was remembered by those who survived. Human fleets remained a reminder of that lesson. They did not attack unless provoked. They did not expand unless invited. They did not interfere unless necessary. Still, rumors spread across star systems. Stories of the human fleet's power circulated quietly among citizens. Entire fleets erased. Entire species removed, not in anger, but in defense. Some whispered fearfully, humans could not be defeated. Others whispered hopefully, humans could be trusted. Inside a human command center, a young officer asked, "Are we the new rulers now?" The commander looked at the galaxy displayed on the holographic screen.
No.
We are not rulers. We are guardians. Rulers destroy. Guardians preserve. The officer nodded, still unsure. A long pause followed, then the commander continued. The Dominion believed strength was about fear. Other species believed strength was about numbers. But the galaxy has learned the truth. The strongest species is not the one that conquers. It is the one that survives. And when pushed far enough, he paused, letting the thought sink in. Humanity removes you from history. The officer shivered, but the commander's tone remained calm. That is power. Not for glory, not for pride, not for wealth, but to protect life, to protect freedom, to prevent erasure. In the following years, humanity's influence quietly shaped the galaxy. They repaired failing systems. They shared knowledge to prevent disasters. They intervened in conflicts only when a species was on the brink of destruction. And yet, no one called them rulers. Every civilization remembered what had happened to the Dominion. Every species knew the consequences of unchecked cruelty. Stories circulated quietly, stories of fleets that disappeared, worlds that vanished, and rulers who were erased without a trace. Humans never bragged. They did not celebrate. They simply ensured it would never happen again. On Earth, the original homeworld, life continued. People explored the stars, built new ships, and studied the mysteries of the universe. Humanity had become both ordinary and extraordinary, capable of great destruction, yet guided by careful restraint. Some historians later reflected on the events. They wrote, "The Alpha fell not because they were weak, but because they underestimated those they thought were weak. Humanity rose not by conquering, but by surviving. They are the new Alpha, not in domination, but in wisdom." And somewhere in deep space, hidden in quiet command centers, human leaders continued to watch. They watched for threats. They watched for instability. They watched for those who might forget the lessons of history. And the message remained clear. The galaxy may have no king, but humanity is always ready. Because the strongest species is not the one that conquers the stars, it is the one that survives. And humanity, now and forever, had proven that survival could mean the end of empires, the rewriting of history, and the protection of life itself. The first dominion was gone. The galaxy had been reminded what happens when fear and cruelty rule. And humanity stood quietly, not as conquerors, but as the ultimate alpha. The stars would never forget again.